This is one of the most exciting and most perfect lenses I have used in my entire life, but it also might be the most disastrous. The Zeiss ZF2 28mm f2 Distagon. I'll explain the good, the not so good, and the disastrous bits, as well as some conspiracy theory bits actually, but first, if I'm gonna show off a lens, I might as well do it properly. How about this? Better? It better be, because this has blown my video budget for the next 10 years. So before we get into what makes this lens so good, what exactly is it? The Zeiss ZF lenses were kind of a high-end range of DSLR lenses made for Nikon F-mount in the 2000s. Like the 00s. I hate the term naughties. There were also versions for Canon EF and maybe Leica M and Pentax K, although I'm not completely sure if they were all the same. The ZF.2 just means that this is the second version of those lenses where they added a chip in the lens so that it can communicate with the camera. The ZF lenses were basically designed to be a much posher alternative to the first-party glass available at the time. They're all manual focus, they're all made out of metal, and they all have that signature Zeiss look, and this one, at least, also has the Zeiss Effect, which we'll get to, and the Zeiss T-Star coating. Fun fact, the T stands for transparent. Bonus fun fact, the idea for lens coatings was invented by Ukrainian Zeiss employee Alexander Smakila. I never believed in the Zeiss look until I saw it with my own eyeballs. When I first used this lens, I immediately knew that I had a winner on my hands. It is exactly what I want a lens to be. Obviously, that's a matter of taste, but my taste is usually right, so we'll go with it. I don't like clinical lenses that are too sharp or too smooth or just too overcorrected. They bore me, and they don't help me to take photos that look like my favorite movies. But I also really don't like the current trend of super vintage looking lenses either. I'm not into the bloom and the softness. I want my lenses to be sharp and good. I just don't want them to be boring. That's what this does perfectly. It's Goldilocks. It's also, don't shoot, got a really 3D look to it. There's just so much depth in every part of the frame, and the subject really pops out from the background. It's got really great color separation, and it has just enough character to be interesting without going anywhere near funky lens territory. Also, another fun fact, Carl Zeiss, like the dude, was actually less mad scientist and more Steve Jobs. Apparently, if their factory made something that wasn't up to his standards, he would personally smash it to bits on an anvil. He also made his workers do 12-hour days. Apparently, they had healthcare though. You know what really doesn't require a 12-hour workday? Making yourself a website with today's video sponsor, Framer. Framer is the absolute best way to create and publish websites, and I recently used it to make zonefocused.com, which is a new portfolio I'm working on. I designed my portfolio to be quite minimal since my photos are already pretty chaotic and noisy, but Framer can do a lot more than simple websites like mine. I was having a look at some other websites powered by Framer for inspiration, and I found this absolute banger, which is for a company that does menu software for restaurants. Then I found this amazing portfolio that looks like something out of a Wong Kar-wai movie. And then I found this great product design portfolio that's scrapbook themed. How cool is that? All of those sites were made entirely with Framer. The point is, Framer is so versatile that you can make anything you want with it, from really simple websites like mine that use lots of the pre-built sections and built-in functions, right through to building out whole businesses with really customized animations and all sorts of stuff. Look, I think for a lot of us, building a website for our work is something that's kind of always on our to-do list, but we never get around to checking it off. And I think that that's because for a lot of us, the idea of building a website feels like a chore. But to be honest, for me, Framer feels just as much like an art-making tool as a technology tool. It's just really fun to use. I've even started using it to do mood boards for shoots, like for this very video. So sign up today using the link in the video description, and while you're at it, make sure you use the code HunterCreates for an upgrade on the house. Big thank you to Framer and to you for your continued support. Without it, this set wouldn't have happened. I actually can't believe that I kind of found this lens by mistake. I was doing some late night scrolling and impulse purchased this with no idea what it was, and what it is up for debate. See, there's a much more famous Zeiss 28mm lens, and that's the Contax Zeiss f2 Hollywood, which middle-aged men on lens forums would very happily trade their wives for in a heartbeat. And the pricing of those bad boys reflects it. There are two versions of the contact Zeiss lenses, the ones made in West Germany and the ones made in Japan. Hold on, my lens is also made in Japan. Trigger warning. If you are a Zeiss purist, take a moment to cover your eyes and ears with the holy Zeiss wipe. The optical formula of the ZF lens, that is, the design of the glass elements that go inside of it, as far as I can tell, is the same. The coatings are newer, fine, but optically it's kind of the same lens, but better because it's 20 years newer with better coatings and a lens mount that anybody actually uses. Right? That was my theory anyway, and obviously I don't have the budget for a made in Germany Hollywood lens because I spent it all on renting this set and on this, the Zeiss CP2 28mm t2.1 Distagon. You'll never guess what I'm about to suggest. This is also the same lens, I think. And so we go from $2,000 for a Hollywood to about $1,200 for a really beat up used ex-rental house version of this to about $500 for one of these. I decided to give you some sort of reference point. I would compare both of these lenses also against a Pentax K 28mm 2.8, which is a lens that I'm really familiar with, and against the Sigma 18-35 at 28mm. Watch these clips and let me know which one is your favorite in the comments, and then in a little bit I'll reveal which was which. What do you think? Can you tell the difference between the ZF and the CP2? Here's the thing about this lens specifically. It's not just that it looks super saucy, it's also extremely useful. 28mm is exactly where I like to be on full frame, and on super 35 sensors like my FX30, this has a field of view of about 40mm. That's literally the two most goated focal lengths of all time in one lens. Some of the Zeiss purists will tell you that the real Zeiss lenses are all made in Germany. But let's just say I wouldn't want to enter a who can manufacture stuff more perfectly contest against Japan. Plus, this made in Germany cinema lens, which has seen the war and horror of rental house use, is actually feeling pretty rough, and the mount is a bit sloppy and the focus isn't perfectly smooth. So unless you do want to remortgage your house in this economy, this kind of wins. See, the people who used these ZF lenses were mostly either studio professionals or high-income hobbyists. And so most of the used ones are in really good condition. I've never seen so many eBay listings in my life that say includes original packaging. Also, the ZF is half the weight and half the size of the cinema lens, and if you need the gears, it's very cheap to mod these with seamless gear rings. Apparently, the Cine version does have a few little sneaky upgrades, like for example, maybe the Zeiss T-Star coating is on every single lens element. Also, the Cine version has a more rounded iris for more spherical bokeh. Again, matter of taste, I think. I actually prefer bokeh that has a little bit of shape to it, since that's a more photographic looking image to my eyes. Also, this lens does the main thing that you buy a Zeiss lens for, and that is the Zeiss Effect. We'll get to that, but first, after all of my mad raving about this lens and how much I love it, and I do, you might think that I think that it's perfect. No. First of all, if you want to manually focus this lens on a DSLR, like this D750 for example, good luck, pal. It's 28mm. There is no depth of field. Without a split prism in the viewfinder, you really do have to rely on that little "you're in focus" dot that comes up, and at least for me, that's never accurate enough, especially shooting this anywhere wider than an f5. It's also just not very much fun. The good news is that both on my f3 with its split prism and on my Z6 III, with a screen that you can zoom into, it's perfectly easy to focus. Also, speaking of focus, Zeiss lenses are usually known for precision, which is kind of code for a long focus throw with a lot of dampening, which is great for precision, but it also makes it way harder to use this lens for street photography. Because of the focus ring being so dampened and smooth, it makes it quite difficult to flick the focus into a specific zone like I'm used to doing with this Pentax lens. It's not crazy tight. If you used a follow focus on here, it would be fine. But for snapshot style photography, it has occasionally been just that little bit slower than I needed it to be. Yes, I know I'm the only photographer on the planet who's pretentious enough to use a manual focus Zeiss lens for snapshots. Chrome tips look great coming out the back of an E30 or a Chaser. Not so much the front of a camera. This is where the lens hood would go. If I had one, for some reason, everybody on the face of the earth immediately lost their lens hood upon opening this lens back in 2007. I will have to get one at some point because this chrome ring annoys me so much that I will actually undertake the humiliation ritual of spending another $150 on a round bit of aluminium. And under that lens hood goes... Guys, look, can I just... Listen, Zeiss is one of the best engineering companies on planet Earth. From pioneering the modern microscope to making some of the world's best lenses, ultra-thin eyeglasses, and get this, they're the only company in the world that has enough precision to do the laser lithography stuff that ASML use to make the semiconductors that power our entire digital economy. And yet, they have somehow managed to make the worst lens cap in the entire world. It's unexplainable. Also, it's slightly annoying that it's a 58mm front thread rather than a 52 like all of my other Nikon lenses, but that's a nitpick. Nikon F-mount is really easy to adapt to a lot of different systems. I put this on my Sony FX30 for lots of video. And so a maybe upside, maybe downside, is that the focus ring goes the Nikon way, or the Pentax way, which is perfect for me, but if you grew up shooting on a Canon, it's going to feel like driving a car on the opposite side of the road. Every time you arrive at an intersection, you will put your windshield wipers on. But that's not all. Another downside is that you will end up divorced and homeless, because as soon as you try one of these, you'll end up buying all of the other focal lengths available because they all look absolutely stunning. And sure, for a manual focus lens, $500 is on the pricier side, but after comparing it to the CP2 and the Pentax, I honestly think that, at least for me, it's worth it. I use this lens to shoot film, street photography, B-roll for these videos, and just about everything, actually. But the real lesson here, and the most important thing that this lens does, it's not the Zeiss look, it's the Zeiss Effect. Yes, I made this up. The Zeiss Effect is what I'm calling that phenomenon that happens when you get a piece of gear that really clicks with you and your style. All of a sudden, now that I have this lens, whenever it's on my camera, I really feel like I have to do my absolute best and make my best work possible. Partially because of just how much fun it is to see what this lens is capable of, but also because I feel a sort of sense of responsibility to live up to just how good I know this can look. People love to argue about whether gear matters or not, and that's fine if you're talking about the end results, but I think often we forget that photography is also a verb. It's a thing that we spend our time doing. And if you're not a professional, it's a thing that you spend your free time doing. And in this economy, we don't get that much free time to be making our own art. So when you are doing it, you may as well enjoy it. Sure, Jimmy Page could make an Amazon Basics heavy metal guitar for kids sound amazing, but I think he had a lot more fun playing his mirrored up Telecaster. That's why I rented a cinema lens and the studio, because this lens inspires me so much that I push myself out of my comfort zone. I gave my accountant a permanent heart condition, and I got people to come and help out. Please, in the comments, say thank you to Kasha and Bruno for their amazing support on this project. They gave up a whole Saturday to help me do this. The thing is, this lens might not make the Zeiss Effect happen for you. That might be a Helios, or it could be a 16 to 35 G Master. It doesn't have to be a Zeiss. It doesn't even have to be fancy. The only thing it has to do is make you completely incapable of sitting inside all weekend on your phone. And you know what? There are some other lenses that have the Zeiss Effect, and a lot of them are so cheap you could buy them with your lunch money. So watch this video next where I'll show you my top 5 underrated and underpriced vintage lenses you can adapt to any camera. Stay hydrated and create art.